Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. You imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one.
Good morning. Welcome to the Lake Chapala Unitarian Universalist Fellowship online Zoom service. My name is Carol Johnson, and I'll be your service leader today. Sharon Robinson will deliver today's talk about how she has overcome harsh life obstacles and found us here at LCUUF. Our announcements were on a slide before the service. If you didn't see them, no worries. Matt will post a link to them tomorrow in his sharing. And so I just want to welcome you with live from Fellowship Hall. It's our LCUUF Sunday morning service. Now we'll welcome Reverend Matt Alsbaugh to read our opening words.
Our opening words this morning are by Margaret Weiss. Come into this place with your whole self, the parts that are raw and exposed, the parts that is beaming with joy, the part that is seeking the truth, the new, the possibility. Come into this place, open your heart, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey, some faces new and others familiar, and all welcoming you here. Now, to this moment, come, let us worship together.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Jennifer Grayson. We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods, yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change the world. Please light your chalices or candles now.
We kindle this light and set. We kindle this light and celebration for the life that we share.
Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. We do this by sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives. If you have a joy or sorrow to share today, you can type it into the chat now, and we'll read those aloud. First, let us voice our sorrows or concerns. Whatever burden you or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. You're welcome to type sorrows and concerns into the chat box.
A sorrow from Trudy and Lou, who say, I don't know when I will be able to feel good about the U.S. That's all I see.
Now let us recall the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others. You're welcome to type joys in the chat box.
We have a joy from Ms. Mulder, who says, love, positive energy for the inauguration, that it goes well and no one suffers injury. I believe this is a joy from Esther that says we offer this service for all the people in the hospital. A joy from Lynn, who says Frank is getting his much needed operation as we meet today. Esther has joy that we are able to share love. Dee Dee and Larry share a joy that we will have a new president and vice president come Wednesday. That's all.
In this candle, from our care team, represents those sorrows that are too raw, too difficult for us to share aloud. Many of us have had losses, partners, children, grandchildren, losses that remain present with us every day. So many of us who have burdens, anger, fear, and frustration, all of those things that weigh heavy on our hearts. We will light this candle for all of those unspoken sorrows. Our hymn this morning is number 86, Spirit of My Life.
Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my worldless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
A little more than a year ago, during Joys and Concerns at our UU Sunday service, a woman stood up and spoke emotionally of the burden of her learning disability and how it has been difficult throughout her life to have her needs met. Many of you may have been there. It was Sharon Robinson who stood up that day. After the service, I approached Sharon and asked her what it was she needed. She replied that mostly she wanted to share her life story with a group of caring women. Well, that's easy, I said. We got a group of 5 UU women together, and we met and got to know Sharon and share all of our stories. Sharon's disability is called dysgraphia, meaning the name dysgraphia means difficulty with writing. It originates in a specific area of the brain. It can manifest as trouble writing letters on paper with a pen, but it includes a variety of issues surrounding language processing. One example I came across is that students with dysgraphia may fail an exam simply because they can't translate their thoughts and answers to the paper. Dysgraphia is a much bigger, more complex disorder than what its name denotes. Sharon's dysgraphia makes processing new information from language and formulating thought into language much more difficult and slower than normal. Memory is also a factor for her. Sharon's life has been a testimony to overcoming the challenges that this disability has thrown her way. I'm proud to introduce her to you now.
Good morning. This is my first attempt at public speaking, and I'm very excited to share my story with you and why I value the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship so much. I think all of the UU principles are vital to my life, the fellowship, and the global community. I'm grateful that I've received such warm welcome here, especially after I stood up and spoke so emotionally of the burden of my learning disability. Carol has told you a little bit about my condition called dysgraphia, not to be confused with dyslexia. I inherited it from my father. Each individual with dysgraphia has their own combination from a wide range of cognitive dysfunctions, but the one thing we all have in common is the inability to write. Since I was 26, it has been very important for me to write about my life. Some of my remarks here today are excerpts from the memoir I've been working on throughout my adult life. I can finally see the big picture of my life. I've drawn all the lessons that I can from my experience because I couldn't learn through most written language. I am so grateful for all the experiences in my life because I have learned so much. While having lived a life on the fringes of society, I am finally beginning to deeply feel welcomed by humanity. I was born to fanatical fundamentalist Christian parents. They taught me about Jesus and the Bible, but about little else. which undermine development of the neural pathways necessary to combat this disability. At 6 months of age, I was hospitalized with pneumonia, left alone in an oxygen tent all day, every day for 2 weeks. My parents visited me in the evenings, but couldn't hold me. Nobody did. That had a profound effect on me. Mama loved me, but I don't remember her ever saying, "Sharon Rose, Mama loves you." She always said, "Jesus loves you." Mama planted Jesus in my heart, which represented light and love that I could see radiating from my heart. Mama taught me that Jesus loved me and would always love me and would never leave me unless I send him away. I never did. I soon realized that Mama would redirect everything said back to Jesus, so I was discouraged from normal childhood expression. I was silenced, not realizing that I was not getting what I needed. It was different when playing with my cousins, Lori and Johnny, who lived with us for the first 5 years of my life. I loved them like my brother and sister. My first heartbreak was when Lori and Johnny were suddenly taken away to live with their mother, without even a goodbye. I entered first grade with this unexpressed broken heart. I had great trouble with school. I flunked first grade. Throughout elementary school, I was the slowest student in the slowest groups, in the slowest classes. I was silent in class because I was afraid that I would be seen as stupid. I was so lost in school, labeled a slow learner, not getting what I needed. In elementary school, I was torn between two worlds. At school, I couldn't talk about my love for Jesus, and at home, I couldn't talk about anything but Jesus, so I was silent. From third grade through sixth grade, I was bullied and ostracized by my classmates. Mama said, "Sharon Rose, Jesus loves you. He wants you to love him by loving them, even when they're mean to you. What you do unto others, you do unto Jesus. Sharon Rose, can you love them like you love Jesus?" So I decided to feel love for them. In the middle of all that, when I was 8, Mama contracted breast cancer. She had surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. But when I was 12 and in 7th grade, Mama died. I had no one to talk to. After Mama died, Daddy was there physically, but not emotionally and intellectually. When I was 13, he molested me repeatedly. Then, with his cold, authoritarian ways, I rebelled and he beat me repeatedly. I finally went to the police and he stopped. At 17, I ran away from home, quit school, got married, and had a baby because I felt so empty. My husband was unfaithful, and I left him after 3 years when my daughter was 18 months old. I was so lost and needed to understand myself, so I began therapy with a male therapist, Bob. I decided that I wanted to be a therapist because that was how I could have a positive effect on the world. However, that would require an education in spite of my learning difficulties. So I returned to school taking remedial courses. Reba, my daughter, and I were living in dreadful low-income housing. I saw a long road ahead of me to be worthy of a man I would want and trust. Bob's light grew as bright as the sun to me, while my light grew so dim. I was suffering from major depression and anemia, not knowing how anemia affects a person or the importance of treating it. I didn't have anyone advising me like a mother. Bob didn't inform me about the benefits of antidepressants, nor refer me to a psychiatrist. When Reba was 2.5, at Bob's urging, I put her in a temporary foster home. It broke our hearts. I finally gave physical custody to her father because I believed that I was a bad mother. Then her father moved her so far away that my old car couldn't make the drive. I felt betrayed, heartbroken, powerless, and alienated. The only work I found was in electronics assembly, making close to minimum wage, because my disability prevented me from getting a better job. It was miserable, mindless work that I couldn't bear but had to. I missed Reba terribly and was more depressed than ever. Eventually, I realized that therapy wasn't getting me anywhere, so I terminated. Bob had said that after therapy was terminated, there was nothing to stop him from being in my life in a different way, and I longed for that, so I didn't think I was going to lose him. I had grown dependent upon him. In the last session, Bob said, after termination, it's customary to meet for lunch, so we made a date for lunch a week later. Well, lunch led to sex. Later, he told me we wouldn't see each other again. For a long time, I thought seriously about suicide, but feared that it would be an unforgivable sin because I wouldn't be alive to ask Jesus for forgiveness. It was my terror of hell and leaving Reba motherless that kept me alive. I spent the next 4 years trying to pull my life together. Even though all my life I had been made to think I was stupid and damaged, something inside me knew I was precious and kept urging me on. I began junior college taking remedial courses again. I finally found a psychiatrist who prescribed an antidepressant. 2 weeks after taking the antidepressant, with relief I thought, is this what life is supposed to be like? I realized that I had been severely depressed since I was 5 years old when I lost my Lori and Johnny. I thought that if I had been prescribed antidepressants before giving up Reba, then I might not have had to. I had pangs of anger, and I knew I had a long road ahead of me to get Reba back. Finally, I did well in school until I got to algebra and English composition. Testing for learning disabilities was still not available to me. After failing twice that year, I quit school, planning on returning eventually, but didn't know how. I still wanted to be a therapist. Something in me was determined to transform my negative experiences into a positive way to serve the well-being, my well-being and that of others. From here, my story takes on an unexpected turn. I've been very careful as to whom I tell this part of my story because it is so dear to me and has a controversial element. The UU principles have helped me to feel safe revealing this part of my story so that I may fully settle into this beautiful community. After not seeing Reba for 4 years, I panicked. I needed time and money to get Reba back and to support my education, and Reba needed her mother. I hadn't been able to pull my life together. An acquaintance suggested, you can be a prostitute. You can make a lot of money in a little bit of time. I was shocked at the idea, saying I could never do that. What would Jesus think of me? It would be like selling my soul to Satan. I live in a Christian community. He brought up Mary Magdalene, whom Jesus loved. I said I wouldn't want a pimp or to be on the street. And what about the risks? He assured me that there were ways around them. In desperation, The idea just kept surfacing in my mind. I had realized that Jesus wasn't going to solve my problems. It was up to me. I thought, this is how I can get Reba back and go to school. This is how I can be an independent woman. This is how I can work closely with people using what Mama taught me about compassion. I can do it all and won't harm anyone. I can finally take back my power and depend on no one but me. After great consideration, with nothing left to lose and so much to gain, I entered sex work. I found a woman who trained me how to work for myself without all the risks that usually go with it. The door to sex work had opened. Everything in my life had prepared me for it. I was used to stigma and alienation. What mattered was that I knew that I was precious, and for the first time in my life, I felt empowered. At first, after seeing a few clients, I cried in my bed because I felt like I was being turned inside out. In my bedroom, I yelled out at Jesus, my parents, the therapist, Bob, angry that I was made to be so vulnerable. I yelled at Mama, you taught me to be good to others, but what about me, Mama? Who's good to me? I feared that my heart could be chipped away or deadened, but I was determined to get through it with my whole heart intact. So I made a commitment to treat my clients and myself with respect and compassion. I thought, it doesn't matter what others think of me. What matters is what I think of me and of them. It's not what you do for a living, but how you do it that matters. So I looked for my clients' humanity, the sacred inside of them, and I saw it. I saw that they were like me, humanity with needs. I saw their inherent worth and dignity. I never felt dirty. I didn't feel that it was dirty if I didn't think of it, if I didn't treat it like it was dirty. And it was my choice. It was a biological and emotional drive that men had. It was an honest way to get what I needed. I studied massage therapy and became a massage therapist to supplement my income. I found a wonderful psychotherapist, Shirley. I bought a new car that could carry me to Reba. I retained an attorney and went to court and regained custody. I worked for many years as a sex worker in my home while Reba was at school. After a close friend, roommate, work partner moved away, I did come to feel isolated in the work. Once again, silenced by a taboo subject and feeling very lonely with my secret. I didn't socialize because of the barrier I felt. I went to Antioch University where I could get credit for life experience. I took classes in counseling, psychology, and women's studies, and I worked on my ability to write. Many credits came from the subject of prostitution, looking at it from many disciplines and the many issues surrounding it. My spiritual views changed to include other paths. I came to believe that there was as many true spiritual paths as there were people. I came to believe that there was no big daddy in the sky who had a plan for everything and everyone. I no longer viewed Jesus in the way that my parents taught, except for the love, compassion, respect, inclusion, and transformation that he taught. Jesus was a source of love for me and for others, but I expected little from others. I saw Mary Magdalene as my spiritual sister. I learned of ancient temple priestesses in many parts of the world before Christianity who were sacred prostitutes dispensing the grace of the goddess, and I felt a closeness to them. I came to know that if if there were a God, it wouldn't damn someone to hell. And I began to translate what people called God into the natural process between ourselves and the universe. I was shocked when my therapist, Shirley, told me that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. I responded just like my mother. I later asked Shirley if I could use her illness to transform my experience with my mother's cancer and death. She wanted that too. When she was ill from the chemotherapy, I found a wonderful ethical male therapist to fill in for Shirley, to help me heal my relationship with my father and with my first therapist who betrayed me. He also helped me process Shirley's illness, as I wished my father had done when Mama was dying. Sometime after that, the cancer went to her brain, and I visited her. Then she died, just like my mother. It seemed so ironic, but I pushed forward to give purpose to her death by taking inventory of my life. I realized that the nature of life is paradox. The nature of this universe is paradox, and we can use that paradox for transformation toward the positive that helps us all. Transformation is our truest power. We can practice it with our internal response to experience, which affects our own lives and the lives of others, extending outward to the global community, because we are one. For years, I had no hope of ever having a safe, loving partnership with a gentle man of integrity. Yet working with this new male therapist and my imagination, I began to feel like I might be able to manifest the right relationship. So I called out to the universe to bring me the one right man who could deal with the truth about me. I did it by writing a personal ad and being honest about what I wanted and who I was, implying that there was a secret. Garrett responded beautifully and directly to my ad, and that's how we found each other. We saw who each other really was. He and Reba loved each other. I knew that I worked with the universe to attract him, the right man for me. Garrett knew the truth about me and honored me. I quit working and went to the university in 1988, to the university full time. We got together in 1988, and he has been supportive of me in everything that followed, including my writing my memoir for publishing. Around 1990, just after the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, testing for learning disabilities became available to me at the college. At age 33, I finally understood the truth about my disability. Although I didn't process information normally, my IQ was much higher than average. The school made accommodations for my disability, allowing me to do my learning analysis verbally rather than in written form. I received my bachelor's degree with concentrations in counseling, psychology, and women's studies. I was accepted into a prestigious master's program in counseling. I was granted Social Security disability income to continue school and worked on my memoir. Before entering graduate school, there was a series of ironic incidences that started with my educational psychologist closing his practice and continued with my psychotherapist, Kathleen, ending her practice. In the process of termination, complications arose. Things were left with me not understanding what happened between Kathleen and me, having no closure. It was a very complex situation. I was completely shocked and confused without explanation. I was entering graduate school with a learning disability during this traumatic process. I experienced all of my past traumas and losses being replayed all at once, compounding this painful trauma and that dragged on. I couldn't tolerate it. I imploded and turned to alcohol. I questioned whether I really wanted to be a therapist. If a client can be so easily hurt by the human mistakes of a therapist, I would never want to harm a client with my human flaws, someone who had come to me for help. After a year of graduate school, I quit, and I've never regretted it, because I remember graduate school as being so difficult for me when I look back. 4 years had passed since the trauma, and I began to experience a kind of madness. I began experiencing synchronicities, but attaching meaning to them that I wished them to have, unrealistic things. I realized that there was something wrong, that I might have slipped into a psychotic state. My psychiatrist prescribed risperidone. I took it that night, and when I awoke, the horrible pain that I had felt in my heart for 4 years after the trauma was finally gone. I still take risperidone today so that it never happens again. While the pain was gone, for 2 decades I lived in a state of confusion about what happened with Kathleen, my former psychotherapist. I worked on my memoir and denied how long and how much I had been drinking. I got close to no one, and no one got close to me. I didn't trust my perceptions, and I knew nothing for sure but Garrett's love. But somehow my spiritual life flourished. I imagined myself as being a cell within a living organism, which is all of existence, of multiple universes, but I knew that I didn't know. I hoped that when I died, my consciousness or awareness would go on, maybe merging with the one, but again, I knew that I didn't know. Just 6 months before moving here, I had stopped drinking with the help of a medication called naltrexone and a self-help group, Smart Recovery, and both worked well. We were living in Idaho, and a week after Trump was elected, we decided to move to Lake Chapala, Mexico, with much anticipation. After moving here, I began feeling apprehensive about my secret. I started drinking again and suffering from cravings. Before we moved here, I had hoped to be open with people, but I didn't want my secret history to get out in the wrong way. I wanted control over my story, over how my story was told. Soon, I met a woman who I had seen as a potential friend. It came out that she was a regression therapist and was used to keeping secrets. She changed my life. 2 sessions were gentle yet powerful experiences that had a profound effect on me. They renewed and changed my perspectives of the nature of reality and the illusion of synchronicities, life and death, and gave me a sense of freedom. She was just the right person who came along and was generously willing to help me heal. Her traveling with me through such an intimate process of seeing my deepest fears while being my true friend has helped me to heal that which I believed could never be healed. What incomprehensible grace. She became my closest friend. All this led to my decision to stop abusing myself with alcohol. Garrett and I were going to a Buddhist Sangha where we met two people who I didn't realize I was going to run into again. I don't think they knew that I noticed them, but I felt their presence. They made an impression on me. Then I went to a women's AA meeting. People looked into my eyes, and after the meeting, strangers would smile with bright eyes, talking directly to me, as if the universe were talking to me through them. I really loved the sense of community it gave me. Then I found you, the Lake Chapala Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, and I was happily surprised to be greeted by one of the two UU members that I had met at the Buddhist Sangha months before, whom I didn't know went to the UU. The other of the two was there as well. They were memorable. Everything in the service resonated with me. The song sung was one that meant the most to me. What a wonderful world. I experienced such welcoming, and all the UU principles matched my list of wishes for my community. I personally value each and every one of the principles and am grateful for their existence, and that you all value them too. They all come together in the support of love. After coming to the fellowship, I realized that my experience as an infant, alone in the oxygen tent, not being held for 2 whole weeks, began an unconscious belief that it was impossible to get what I really needed from the world. My first 30 years of life reinforced that belief. When I spoke up at the UU meeting of my burden with my learning disability, Carol Johnson kindly came to me and asked me what they could do for me. And I received exactly what I really needed from a wonderful group of women. Whereas I hid so much of myself in silence throughout my life, I didn't have to hide anything from these precious women. We still meet monthly. We've named it Tertulia. And it's a group for all of us, and I so appreciate them all. Stirred by my meeting with our Tertulia, Garrett could see that it became urgent that I speak with my former therapist, Kathleen, to understand what happened 26 years ago. So he asked me if he could make a phone call to a friend of Kathleen's who influenced Kathleen to contact me, so we could finally talk to learn the truth about what had happened so many years ago. I was finally able to talk with Kathleen and regain trust in my own perception, get clarity and resolution. This brought us closure, which we both wanted. After 26 years, my confusion was finally gone. Throughout my life, I have had the sense that I am not my face. That's just the face I've been given. I am not my body. That's just the body I've been given. I am not my story. That's just the story that I've lived. By writing my story, it allows me to witness my story. By witnessing it instead of being lost within it, I am able to see the beauty of it all. I am the witness and the actor, and I am something more. Each and every one of the UUF principles is an important component to meeting the spiritual needs of humanity, giving this community what we really need in our search for truth, giving room to our own paths. These principles engender a sincere generosity of acceptance, respect, and a bigger kind of love for ourselves and each other, no matter where we've come from, while extending outward into the larger community and the global community. They help us appreciate the awesome interconnectedness and oneness of all existence. They acknowledge our birthright as whole spiritual beings. All the principles work together, mirroring my values that I have come to love. So many of the people of this congregation have helped me to experience what it's like to live in a world where these principles are practiced. It's all the little things each of you say and do that are such gifts to me. It seems that the principles attract a certain kind of people, the kind of people I would call family. Thank you for listening and giving me this opportunity to break my silence. Thank you to all who have given me the courage to do so. It was my next step toward my truth and a milestone for me. I thank this family for giving me the shelter that I have needed for many years. You are healing me further by allowing me to share the wholeness of me with you. I hope you are inspired to tell your stories to us and share how you came to be who you are inside. This has been the barest skeleton of my story. There is so much more to my memoir with many intertwining stories of transformation. It is unique yet universal, with many messages. I'm getting close to finishing it, but don't know when it will come out. Please let me know if you are curious to know more, and I can let you know when it comes out. I am in the new LCUUF directory. Thank you again.
This is the time in our service where we ask that you remember that we share our gifts here through pledging and donations. We're not meeting in person now, but our connections to each other and our contributions to the community continue. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide that were on the announcement. Instructions for payments were on the slide for the announcements for the service. Sorry. Okay. And while you are considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization providing food aid at our lakeside community. When you pay your pledge, please add something for the Share the Basket, as you used to place pesos in our physical basket. You can donate the same way that you pay your pledge, but please donate Share the Basket separately or indicate what part of your donation is for Share the Basket. Your offerings are gratefully received. Let us extinguish our chalices with these words that we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world.
Our closing words are by Andre Moll. May we remember, when you share with me what is most important to you, that is where listening begins. When I show you that I hear you, when I say your life matters, that is where compassion begins. When I venture out to bring you to shelter, that is where love begins. When I risk my comfort to ease your suffering, when I act against hatred, violence, and injustice, that is where courage begins. When we experience the full presence of each other because of our shared humanity, because of our differences, that is where holy gratitude begins.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? I really think I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a